So they're going to take Colin to the garden and make him become better. Maybe he'll be able to walk. Maybe he can convince his dad not to send Mary away. I sure hope so. Gosh, this story is getting really good. I kind of like it, and I can't wait to see the movie when it comes out. I want to compare the book to the movie and see how they're the same and how they're different. All right, let's go. Chapter 19. Chapter 19, Unlocking the Past. If I can help Colin get better, I don't care what happens to me, Mary thought fiercely as she crept through the corridors with Dickon behind her. They can send me to school and do whatever they like. To her relief, through one of the windows, she saw Mrs. Medlock setting out in the car. At least that was one less person to avoid. Colin was waiting for them. Are we going to the garden again? He asked eagerly. Yes, Mary told him. Why didn't you come and see me last night? Colin asked her accusingly as they set off down the corridor. I waited and waited, and you didn't come. I couldn't, she said. I was locked up. They want to send me away to school, Colin. Send you away? Colin said. She nodded miserably. Your father is determined. Mrs. Medlock worked out I'd been visiting you, which made him angry. And then they found that I'd been in your mother's room. It was such a mess from the other night. I will tell Father I don't want you to go, declared Colin. I don't think that will work, Mary sighed. But let's not talk about that now. Let's just think about the garden. Our garden, Colin said happily. Mary hesitated. It wasn't their garden. She knew that now, but she wasn't sure that he was ready to hear that yet. When they reached the garden, she put her plan into action. The stream had cured Hector's leg. Maybe it could do the same for Colin? At first, Colin didn't like the idea of going in the water. It looks cold, he said doubtfully as they helped him remove his outer clothing. I think I shall just sit here on the bank. No, you are going in, Mary told him. You're not going to be a baby about this, she said warningly. He started to frown, but then sighed. Okay, very well, he grumbled. Mary and Dickon began to lower him gently into the flowing water. Colin gasped. Oh, it is cold. The leaves of the ferns around the stream seemed to shiver in sympathy. It's very, very cold. His eyes widened, and he clutched Mary's arm. I don't think I can do this. Of course you can, said Dickon cheerfully. No, I don't think so. We've got you, Dickon told him. Colin looked from Dickon to Mary and then took a breath. Well, he said bravely as they lowered him in a little further, I suppose it's not freezing after all. Soon he was sitting in the stream, the pure clean water flowing over him, with only his shoulders and his head above the water. I've done it, he exclaimed, his face breaking into a look of delight. I've actually done it. The ferns began to stop shivering as he smiled. Now you can learn to float, said Dickon. Hold your arms out and lie back. Colin hesitated. Mary and I have you, Dickon said. Colin did as he was told. He was leaning back and turning his face up to the blue sky. As he stretched his arms out to the side, a look of joy crossed his face. Dickon nodded at Mary, and they removed their hands. And now you're on your own, said Dickon, as they backed away. Colin grinned and then started to laugh. And as he did, his hands splashed into the water, sending droplets raining over Mary and Dickon. Mary squealed, and Colin laughed even harder. When he was ready to come out, Mary and Dickon helped him get dressed again, and then they all set to work on the grounds around the temple. Colin was happy to sit on the grass, pulling out the weeds from the patch of bright blue spring bulbs, daffodils, bluebells, little purple, grape hyacinth, while Dickon dug and Mary crouched down, separating out their plants. Some were growing too close together. They worked in a companionable silence for a while. Done, Colin declared. Move me over there now, please. Mary and Dickon hoisted him up by his arms and put him down in a new spot. Humming to himself, he carried on with his work. Dickon and Mary smiled at each other. Looking up, Colin caught their smiles. What? He said suspiciously. Nothing. We're just enjoying your happiness, said Mary. We're all happy, aren't we? Said Colin. True enough, said Dickon, nodding. We're like pirates, exclaimed Mary. We're like lords, Dickon grinned. Colin threw his hands dramatically into the air. We are conquerors of this fair and beautiful land. This is our garden, and we love it. No, it's not, said Mary quickly. Colin frowned. What? It's not our garden, Mary said. It's happy that we're here, though, but it was made by someone else, and it still belongs to them. She bit her lip and decided it was now or never. She had to tell Colin what she knew. Come here. Come with me. I need to show you something. Dickon gave her a concerned look. Mary? I have to show him, Dickon, she said. He needs to see. See what? Colin said warily. Just come with us, said Mary. She and Dickon pushed Colin's wheelchair through the temple, past the broken statue, through the grove of umbrella plants and the overgrown trees. The wheelchair bumped and bounced over the tree roots. Colin gripped the sides tightly. He'd fallen silent. Eventually, they reached the clearing with the oak tree and the swing. As they pushed him into the clearing, Mary felt the air go still, as if the garden was holding its breath. As Colin's eyes fell on the oak tree and the swing, a look of horrified understanding dawned on his face. Stop! Stop! I command you, stop! She halted. Colin stared at the swing. His face was paler than ever. Do you know what happened here then? Mary said softly. A muscle jumped in Colin's jaw. They told me that my mother died in her favorite clearing, where she used to have a swing. Is this the place? Mary nodded. Colin started to struggle upright, using his arms to push himself up into a standing position. Why would you bring me here? Well, because you needed to see it, said Mary, shocked at the hurt in his eyes. Would you like to see the place where your mother died? He cried. My mother died in a hospital, alone and in pain, Mary retorted. I thought you would like to see that your mother died in a very peaceful place, a better place. I thought that it would help. Colin sank back into his wheelchair. Well, you thought wrong, he muttered. There was a long silence. When he spoke, his voice was tight. Can you fetch me some flowers, please, Dickon? The white ones. With an anxious look at Mary, Dickon nodded, and he did what he was asked. And then, can you take me home? Colin continued stiffly. I don't want to be here. You don't understand, said Mary, knowing that her plan was going horribly wrong and wanting desperately to make it right. Colin, your mother didn't want to leave you, but she had no choice. She came here to die because it was beautiful, and I think that when she died, she made the garden magical. It cured Hector's leg and... She swallowed. I believe it could... No! Colin cut in furiously, his knuckles white as he gripped the arms of his chair. Don't say it. Don't, he ground out. I didn't want to see the dresses, and I didn't want to see this, and I want to go home. Mary lapsed into silence as Dickon handed the white flowers to Colin. Without a word, Colin scattered them on the grass, bright splashes of white against the green. His shoulders slumped. Take me home, please, he said to Dickon. Of course. Dickon wheeled Colin away. As they headed back through the trees, the plants around Colin's chair seemed to shrink. Gunners and vines curling in on themselves, branches drooping and leaves turning brown with sadness as he passed. Disappointment crashed over Mary. She didn't know what she'd expected. Maybe that Colin would find some peace in seeing where his mother had died. Maybe in knowing that she was still there, in a way, in her garden. She looked around the clearing. What was she going to do now? Tell me, she whispered to the garden. Please, show me the way. Mary could not sleep that night. She got up and fetched her mother's letters and then sat on the floor in her room, looking through them. Her mind was turning over everything again, trying to work out what to do and what would be best. Then a memory flashed into Mary's mind. Her father was hugging her, wiping away her tears. Your mother is sad at the moment, Monkey, and her sadness has made her unwell. Don't be angry with her that she doesn't want to see you. It's not her fault. One day you will understand. Thought Mary. Do I understand now? She certainly felt like she was beginning to see the past differently. She looked up, and then she saw her mother standing by her window. Her eyes were full of sadness, sadness Mary now knew for the sister that she had lost. Mary was too shocked to speak. A gust of wind rushed through the room. It swept the letters up and sent them swirling high into the air. Mary grabbed them. "Mommy, I'm sorry," Mary whispered. "I didn't understand, but I think I do now." Her mother's gaze met hers, and she smiled. Then she vanished. Mary suddenly knew what she had to do. In the morning, she went straight to Colin's room with the letters, but the door was locked. She rattled the handle. "It's me. Can you call Martha so she'll let me in?" "No, I don't want to see you today," said Colin in a hard voice, "and I don't want to go to the garden." "But I have something to show you," Mary pleaded. "I found some letters from my mother. They're to your mother. They talk about you and her illness and how Archie, your father, worries about your health so much because of his own hunchback. She says he's scared that you'll be a hunchback too, and he's desperate to protect you. She talks about how fearful she is that he will project his own fears onto you and that will make you ill after she's gone, which is exactly what he's done. I think you'll like to see them, and it may change how you feel. Please?" There was silence. Mary waited, wondering what he was going to say, and suddenly the door opened. Her eyes widened in shock. Colin had gotten out of bed and opened the door himself. He was hanging on to it, but still standing up, looking a little shaky. "I need to read those letters," he said. Then his legs shook and he collapsed on the floor with a cry. Mary tried to catch him, but she wasn't strong enough, and she ended up crashing down with him. "Ow!" she gasped as they both hit the floor. He pushed himself away. "Sorry." "Colin, you walked," Mary exclaimed, not caring about her own bruises. "You got out of bed and you walked." He looked at his legs in confusion. "I did, didn't I?" Mary beamed. "Now will you believe in the magic?" She helped Colin into his chair and showed him the letters. "Here, read them," she said, pushing them into his lap. He nodded. "I will, but I'm not reading them here. Take me to the garden." They set off. When they reached the garden, they found Dickon trimming the hedges near the statues in the sun. They explained why they had come and then sat down together in the flower-filled clearing by the swing. Colin and Mary read through the letters while Dickon sat nearby. He was petting Hector. "Listen to this, Mary," said Colin, reading a passage. "She's bold, slightly dangerous, and she has a spirit that nothing can quench. I'm so very proud of her." "Who's she talking about?" asked Mary, puzzled. You idiot," Colin grinned. "She's telling my mother about you. She loved you, Mary." Mary frowned. She had skipped over those passages. She skipped the ones that weren't about Colin and his mother and father. That can't be right," she said uncertainly. Despite the night before, it was hard to change the thinking of a lifetime. My mother did not want to see me or be anywhere near me. She certainly wasn't proud of me. But for the first time, the words sounded slightly automatic, as if they were words that she was just used to repeating, because that's what she'd always said. They weren't really words that she meant. She changed the subject. It was Colin who was important. "Look, here's some more about you. I'm so pleased that Colin is making you laugh so. A whole day pretending to be a dog. What a delight he is. Archie sounds as if he loves him dearly. I'm just as besotted with my Mary." Her voice slowed as she realized what she'd just read. "My father doesn't love me," said Colin, shaking his head. "If he loved me, he wouldn't give me medicine that I don't need, and he wouldn't keep me shut in a room, and he would come to see me sometimes." Dickon shrugged. "Well, folks act in strange ways when they're hurting, just like animals do." Mary thought about Hector, the way he'd been when he was injured, and how he'd snapped at her because he had been in such incredible pain. "Loss changes people," Dickon went on. "Why, even your mother, Mary. It's clear from those letters that she loved you, even if you think differently." "Oh, you don't know what my mother was like," Mary said. "No," Dickon paused. "But I do know what it's like to lose someone." They were all silent for a few minutes. Colin broke the silence by reading another passage out of the letter. "Listen to this. She reminds me so much of you in a way that she looks like you and she acts like you, Grace. She makes stories up all the time and loves to put on puppet shows. She did one for me the other night the night before last about an Indian myth. It was so very elaborate. Poor Aya had to make some silk curtains for it. I love to watch her, and I love to listen to her stories. Mary could hardly believe it. She wrote that she liked my plays? Colin nodded. So are you sure your mother hated you, Mary? Quite sure, he said, handing her the letter. Mary reread the words, and as she did so, a light seemed to come on in her head. Memories flashed in front of her eyes. The past twisted and rearranged itself, and suddenly she began to see her childhood in a new way, to tell a different story about her past. The mother who had hated her daughter so much that she didn't want to look at her, became now a mother whose daughter reminded her so much of her sister that she couldn't even bear to look at her. She was a mother whose grief for her twin sister was so overwhelming that she had to shut herself off from the world, like a wounded animal, chasing away anybody who tried to come near her, even her own child. She did love me, Mary thought. Maybe neither of us know our parents very well, said Colin. As Mary nodded slowly, she heard the faint sound of laughter and saw the ghostly figures of her mother and her aunt, and Colin and herself when they were both little kids. They were skipping between statues, holding each other's hands in a chain. The adults' eyes shone with love as they looked down at their children. Then they danced on toward the temple, and then the figures dissolved into the light. Mary couldn't stop thinking about the letters for the rest of the day. Not just the passages about her, but the passages about her uncle, too. Her aunt made it sound like she had loved Colin so very much. So why did Uncle never visit Colin now? And why has he forced Colin to take medicine to make him believe that he has a hump? Was Colin's illness only a result of his father projecting his own fears onto him, just like Aunt Grace had worried that would happen? She was settling Colin back in his room later that day when Martha came hurrying in. Miss, it's Miss Medlock. She's looking for you. She mustn't find you here. Mary raced away. She ran down the corridors and emerged on the main staircase to see her uncle come through the front door. Mary was about to disappear into her room when Mrs. Medlock came out of the ballroom. There you are, girl. I've been searching for you high and low. I was outside, said Mary, glad she was still wearing her outdoor clothing as proof. Mrs. Medlock smiled, reminding Mary of a cat that had just gotten a bowl of cream. She looked extremely satisfied with herself. Mary felt a shiver of foreboding run down her spine. Well, we've had quite the surprise today, Mrs. Medlock said. We've just had word from Miss Clausen's seminary for young ladies. Her smile grew even broader. And they are ready to take you, dear. To take me? Echoed Mary, her heart filled with fear. Yes. Mrs. Medlock's smile widened triumphantly. You're to go to school, girl. We've already packed your things. The car will be here to collect you tomorrow.